Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. Today, we're going to talk about how to be successful with voice search. And my name is Kelsey Jones. I'll be your moderator. I am the editor-in-chief of Neil Patel's blog, and I also have spoken at conferences all over the world, like PubCon, State of Search on SEO and content strategy. So I love working with SEMrush, so it's exciting to be moderating today. We have with us today Brendan Walsh. He is from Lionbridge. Brendan, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I work in content optimization globally for large multinational companies and deal with all the ensuing SEO issues, and would like to see more people treating voice as a channel in itself.
Yeah, I agree. We also have Olga Andrienko. Am I saying your last name right? She is the head of global marketing at SEMrush. So, Olga, I know you are basically on the other side of the world and you're joining us at 5 a.m. So I'm so glad you made it.
Yeah, well, the world is functioning, marketing world is functioning 24/7. So it doesn't matter where I am, and there are always people eager to learn. And I'm really excited to be here. Voice search is actually, and this study that I will be sharing is the passion of mine. I was the one initiating it, and then I really feel and believe that voice search is gathering pace, and I'm super excited to share what we've researched and the key takeaways that marketers could learn from that.
Yeah, I read the study when it came out last week, and it's really exciting. So there's a lot of good information in your presentation too. So I know we're just kind of waiting for some more people to trickle in. As we're doing that, I will go ahead and introduce our speakers today. So like I said, we have Brendan. He is from Lionbridge. He is a global search matter expert. He works closely with clients on global content strategies and helps them create useful content to target audiences in their market. He also helps Lionbridge with their technical infrastructure to make sure that it's optimized for international markets and that the right page will appear on the right market. So if you have any international questions specifically, as well as other things with voice search, Brendan will be a great asset today. We also have Olga, like I said, she's the head of global marketing at SEMrush. So she has done a great job of promoting the SEMrush brand just around the world. It now is visibly in over 50 countries. Besides running global marketing at SEMrush, she also was a judge of content and social media awards in the US, the UK, and in Europe. In 2018, she was mentioned as one of the 25 most influential women in digital marketing by Top Rank, which is awesome. And Olga speaks at major marketing conferences around the world and has her insight has appeared in media like Business Insider and Washington Post. So throughout the webinars, the short presentations today, go ahead and put questions in the live chat box, and we will have someone back behind the scenes sending those to me. We'll have time for about 1 or 2 questions in between presentations, and then we will hold all questions after that till the end after Olga's presentation. So go ahead and put something in the chat box so you don't forget while the presentations are going on. We also love any live tweets you might have. If you're tweeting what you've learned today, that would be awesome. And if you have any concerns about the presentation or the webinar, if you can't hear, be sure to mention it in the live chat and we will try to help. So with that being said, Brendan, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll share my screen and my presentation. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So, how to be successful from a voice search perspective? Well, there are a number of areas, and obviously, as we go through this, I will kind of focus in on how we use SEMrush from an operational perspective. to implement successful voice search strategies from a technical perspective, from a research perspective, from a measurement perspective. SEMrush is integral for researching all of these areas. So from a technical perspective, having a strong foundation is of critical importance. SEMrush site audit is very useful from this perspective. Getting your site into that top 10% it's a nice target and difficult to achieve at times, but well worthwhile. SEMrush is very good from like security, crawlability, performance, internal linking. In particular, those from a high level perspective, and drilling down from those within the site audit tool gives you great insights into how to improve all of those areas. Structured data, SEMrush is really useful, just in particular from a high level perspective and understanding, what percentage of pages do have structured data or don't have structured data, what type of structured data has been applied to them, and where opportunities might exist. From a structured data perspective, using question, answer, FAQ page, QA page, all of these will help Google understand that you have questions, you have answers, and from a voice search perspective, that's really where you're aiming for. People don't use keywords from a voice search perspective. They tend to ask questions, and as such, Google likes to be able to answer them. So any kind of elements that will help you communicate that question and answer type format for your content to Google is very useful. Overall technical issues are analyzed, remedial actions specified by a skilled global SEO analyst. So understanding how a technical issue can impact SEO is important. So having that SEO insight is critical at this stage. SEMrush also analyzes geo-targeting issues, but we generally supplement this with some manual analysis of sitemaps to see if hreflang tags are applied throughout sitemaps, and also just manual in-market search results and seeing, is there cross-market cannibalization or anything like that. And then specifying remedial actions on hreflang tags, sitemaps, Google Search Console, language selection tools. All of these are elements that come together to provide a good geo-targeting dynamic. This is an area that's very close to my heart, geo-targeting, because from a voice search and from a general search perspective, if the wrong page is landing in market, not only are you diluting your content, but your users end up on the wrong funnel. From a research perspective, I mean, this is really, I think, where everything comes together or starts off really for voice search. You need to understand your audience, and within each market, the research has to be done separately. People use different keywords in different markets, but people ask questions completely differently in all markets. So even, English markets, whether it's the US, the UK, Australia, or any other smaller markets, people just ask questions differently. So using those questions and answering the questions in the local vernacular is really important. Topic research, basic keyword research, questions research, competitor research, intent research. We use SEMrush throughout this process. The topic research tool, the keyword overview, keyword magic tools, domain analytics, the organic research tool for competitor research. We would supplement that with, intent research, reviewing what content is winning in each market, how it's winning, what type of content. Is it a list? Is it a definition? Are there any obvious content gaps? What questions are not being answered? And it's particularly interesting, like from a language perspective. I come from a language company, so understanding that, the content gaps from an English perspective, there may not be that many, but there may be significant opportunities in other languages, German, French, Chinese, Japanese, Spanish. The amount of content available in these languages not as much as in English, so the competition is less, so the opportunity can be significant. Other areas, where you can gather questions would be in local forums, social media, and anywhere else where your audience, that local audience, might be communicating publicly. We generally carry research out in market by SEO specialists. So it's important that this type of research is carried out by people who are native to the country, who speak the language natively, and who understand the nuances. Because, as I said, questions can't really be translated; they have to be recreated in the local language. From a planning perspective, voice usually fits into a higher level overall content strategy. So whether that's a hub and spoke architecture or whatever it is, but what's important really to understand from a content strategy perspective is voice requires dedicated in-market content creation rather than translation of source content or anything like that. If you want to be successful from a voice search perspective, translation, and the fact that I come from a translation company, this kills me to say, but translation really doesn't work. You need to go a step beyond translation, whether it's transcreation or from the ground up content creation is probably the best approach. From the research that we've carried out on the previous slide, what we do is we build up groups of questions, groups of keywords, build up content specifications that way with the keywords, the questions to be answered, what we've learned about the search intent, the type of content is winning, maybe suggested metadata, title and description. All specifications are written by in-market SEO specialists familiar with the local market. And then we couple that from a planning perspective with a set of content guidelines, how to structure your on-page content so that it's easy to extract. It's a particularly powerful way of approaching this is make sure that your on-page content looks like you would expect it to see in a featured snippet. And that just makes it easy for Google to understand it and extract it. Use questions in your headings, answer those questions in short paragraphs or a list or whatever. And these content guidelines have evolved, we say, over a number of years, and they're quite effective. So we've done all the planning, we've done all the research, we've done everything that we need really, and now we're in the create mode. So from a create perspective, the creators have their guidelines, they have their specifications, but they also need to be creative. They need to be allowed to be creative. Good quality content that flows well, works, and poorly written content will not be shared. So the quality of the content is of utmost importance. And this is why in-market resources, local research is really important. High quality content captures featured snippets and answers questions. And this is something that you have control over. So, backlinks, sharing, all that kind of thing, you may not have as much control over. But quality content, you do have control over. And with Google's algorithm, it's not all about backlinks. It's not all about being, a popularity contest. Some aspects of the algorithm are purely about quality content. So quality content can win even without a backlink. So focus in on making sure that your content is of, as good as it can be. From my perspective, Lionbridge have access to a global team of content creators in all markets, all languages. So that aspect of it is very easy from my perspective. But for other companies, it might not be as simple. But just to be aware that as you start to create global content and start to target voice in a serious way, this just grows into quite a large project and requires effective project management. You could have 2 resources per market, per language, working on creating high quality content with a project manager and some SEO overhead. So there can be quite a lot of moving parts in the global content project. So just don't underestimate the effort from a project management perspective. We normally ask for an extra 50% to be allowed for project management of a project like this compared to, say, a standard language project in a company. And finally, we're on to not finally, but we're on to publish and share. So when you're publishing content, try and publish a regular, steady stream of content in each market. Make sure everything like that, titles and descriptions are well optimized. Structured data applied and optimized for each market. And also media. Media is generally, when you go live with the site first, media is generally well optimized. But as you publish content on a regular basis, it's very easy for large images in particular to sneak into your content. So just to be really careful about that. Large images can, slow down a page significantly enough that it can't perform from a voice search perspective. Amplify content on social media, focusing on outlets where your audience are comfortable and exist from a global perspective. This will vary from country to country. Use your networks. Try and excite your company employees about sharing great local content. Obviously, this will be driven by an in-house marketing team usually, but amplification and trying to excite company employees is a really good way of starting to amplify your content. And if you're creating really good, useful local content, it's a lot easier than if you're just trying to push like a single corporate message out to multiple audiences where it may not necessarily resonate. And finally, measure and analyze. So from a measurement perspective, this is a sweet spot again for SEMrush. Rank tracking, featured snippet tracking, competitor tracking, everything's available in a very visually exciting tool, easy to share from a management perspective. Walking through the reports is straightforward, and if you're telling a good story, it tells a very good story. Are you ranking well? Are you answering questions? Are you converting well? And really, what we're trying to find out here, and particularly in a large-scale project, is what's working well, and can that be repeated? From a large global project, what authors are gaining the most traction and resonating with the local audience? If you're using 5 or 6 authors in a market, are 2 or 3 of them actually creating content that's much more resonant, that's gaining more traction? Is it converting better? We use the SEMrush position tracking tool, the featured snippet report, the keyword rankings in each market, competitor tracking and discovery, and page performance. We also then, will measure and analyze using Google Analytics and Google Search Console. And SEMrush integration with GA and GSC allows us to produce standard branded reports easily in a very easy to consume manner. So that's really that's the end of my presentation. I don't know if any questions have come in while I've been talking, or Kelsey, if you have anything you would like to.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. Really detailed. We do have a lot of questions coming in, so that's awesome. We just have time for one right now, and then after Olga gives her presentation, we will get to the rest of the questions here. So someone asked, and Olga, feel free to answer as well. In your opinion, which business fields is voice SEO necessary?
I think if you go back 20 years ago, and if you ask people in which business is a website necessary, you're getting to the same type of question. Voice search is a channel. And I think everyone should be competing in, it's a new channel, but it's open to everybody. It's useful for everybody. And I think if you are interested in creating useful content for your users, voice search is where you want to be.
Awesome. That's a good way to think of it. Olga, did you have any other insight?
No, not really. I just think that it's still, well, for some industries that might work better now, maybe, but everybody should look at it because it's growing, and also probably it will be greatly. So, for example, if I take device with this, like digital assistant with a screen versus digital assistant without the screen, I would guess that, for example, for recipes, it would be like voice search for devices with the screen would be developing more, just because people would want to see the videos, or at least the images that come with it. So just also be mindful that the market of the devices, it's different, and I'll be showing later. Then the results really depend on whether the device will have a screen or not. So yeah, just look at the SERPs, look at the whether Google has specific SERP features. If they have featured snippet and people also ask, then it means that these elements are likely to go into voice search answers. And if you see those elements, then you definitely already should be thinking about voice search.
Good info. With that being said, I'm sure you have more to share on your presentation. Oh, you're muted.
Okay, so now it's my turn to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll share the screen. And
yep.
Are you able to see it, right? Okay. So I'll be talking about our voice search study, and we did now a local version of it. So we started in 2019 with analyzing 3 devices, and we went only with Google devices at that time. And the key takeaways from 2019 study were that, well, you should rank in top 3. A lot of answers come from featured snippets, or people also ask. Then Google devices give around 41 words, read 41 words as an average. Readability matters, and then the text should be easy, but not too easy. And then Google really favored the websites that loaded faster, and backlinks somehow helped. And then the influence was not significant, but still was there. So this was our 2019 study. And this is how we selected the factors. And then what didn't really matter was the schema and other SERP features, which will not be true this year. So how the methodology looks like, we are asking the the laptop was asking the question, and then then the device was recording what was given the answer, and then laptop was recording this answer, and then we matched it with our data at SEMrush. And this is how it looked in real life. This is exactly how it looked this year as well, except that we had a lot of the devices around laptop this time. So in 2020, we thought, because when we took 20,000 queries, they were really random, and then there were a lot of informational queries, and then there were not many near me or location-based queries. So this year we thought, okay, what if we only ask questions that would be location-specific, and would the results be different? So I'm happy to present the outcome. So right now, why we also like a bit of a statistics on voice search now. Well, 1 in 4 queries in Android already is done with voice. Actually, in 2015, Google said that overall, then 1 in, I guess it was by that time 20%. Now it's 27%, so it's growing, but it's not like really growing that fast. Still, 27% is somehow significant. And out of those searches, out of all 58% of all voice searches done, they're done about local business search. So this is the statistics that really made us thinking that we need to provide the necessary information for optimizing for location-specific voice search. So when we look at the market share, then we see that Siri actually dominates the market, and Google Assistants are also have really high share. So you understand, you see that it's more than 100%, right? Because people now have more than one device. I can have I can have Alexa at home. Still, I'm using the iPhone, right? So I actually am using voice search with different devices. So that means that there's also an overlap with the devices, and it will never be 100% of the market share. It will be more. And what we've used, so the only one missing is Cortana. We haven't used that one, but we've used the Google devices, and then we also added the Google Home Hub with the screen. Then we checked Siri, and we used iPad Mini. Also, be mindful that the results can be different depending on, in Siri, depending on the iPhone or tablet. And then we took Alexa. And what data? So this is the one, the lowest line is the most important one. So for Amazon Alexa, Alexa takes the data from Bing, Yelp, and Yext. Siri really depends on, it grabs the data from Bing, Yelp, or TripAdvisor, and Google Assistants are obviously using Google. So there are different systems, different algorithms. And when we checked actually how many queries assistants couldn't answer, you see that actually Alexa couldn't answer 23% of questions, which is quite high. So for all other devices, then they were, in 95% or more cases, they were answering the questions, and then Alexa wasn't really good at it. And the reason is that Alexa actually is not really geared for search. Alexa is geared for commands and for shopping. But it's not a voice search device. It was designed differently. In terms of the text length that devices give, so the average was 23 words, and then Google was consistent as they were last year. So it was 41 words that they give for overall queries, and then for location specific, this doesn't change. So for these devices, and then you can see that for Google device with the screen, the result has a lot less words. And then Alexa was the shortest, and Siri is somewhere in the middle. So this is really different depending on the device. I would still say that, if you, this is also the average length of the featured snippet result in SERPs. So for Google Home devices, that really correlates with featured snippet answers. And then, with Android and Google Home Hub, this is just, they have a screen, and everything's different when we have a screen. So do they really recommend the same businesses, or is it completely different? And then for businesses, for business listings, we analyzed basically they take information from Apple Maps, Google My Business, and then Yelp. And reviews, you see that especially, well, Yelp is mostly used in the United States. And we actually, when we analyzed the queries, they were, we checked from Empire State Building. So we just put our location there, and we've seen a lot of data coming from Yelp, and especially reviews. So it turned out that the overlap is not significant, and then most of the devices, they do suggest different businesses, and the overlap between Google Home, Alexa, and Siri and Alexa is just super insignificant. So now all of the devices will be recommending various businesses. And then we decided to check whether Google Assistants give the same answers, and then they do not return the same result at all. And you see that this is really tiny overlap, considering that they have this similar algorithm. And then the same, the biggest overlap was between Google Home Hub and Android phone. The reason is, again, this it was because they have a screen, and so you can see here the overall. I'll share the link in the study, and you'll be able to see more visuals from there. But yeah, this was surprising. I was expecting more overlap. And the main factor that the data scientists gave as a conclusion was that whenever there is a screen, then people will see the screen, and then the text lengths would be shorter, and then also the results will be different. And we also checked personalization. So we checked what results we would have when we are logged in or logged out. And it seems that we actually, two positions are the same, and then the third one is different. So there's not really much personalization there. And then for other queries, that was also true. So with voice search, there's not much personalization, and then what you check in the incognito mode, then this is likely, this is what you also see in as a voice search answers. And you see that basically you already notice that this really looks like it's really SERP feature dependent. And then what we discovered about Google algorithms, that they pick this from the local pack, and this is very true for Google algorithm, that you need to optimize for specific SERP feature, and especially the local pack listing. So there's basically, if we in 2019 we analyzed, and then there was no structured data impacting the results. With location specific, there's absolutely a must that you optimize for local pack, but you would do it anyways for local specific businesses. And then this is what you're likely to also optimize for in voice search. And still, this is true for Google algorithms. And this, the factors that we analyzed in 2019, they still matter for Google virtual assistants, and so these factors also matter. And then in terms of the Siri algorithm, this was super interesting, and I haven't come across the study like this and about the Siri actually anywhere else. And Siri really depends on Yelp. And this is again US based, but Siri gathers the data from Yelp TripAdvisor and OpenTable, but Siri clearly prioritizes Yelp. And then there are different factors we checked, and then it was really depending on the distance. And you cannot really impact or beat the distance. So it's really the factor that you cannot control. And in terms of the best restaurant search, except the distance, then Siri shows the restaurants or anything else. So it's just an example with the restaurants. It gives the highest average star rating. And for example, if there is an unpopular place with one review, it could be prioritized rather than a good place with many 4.5 star ratings. So you really need to aim for 5 stars. And the checklist, filling the Yelp profile, and make sure that you choose category right way, add photos, and make sure that also you really generate reviews, and then you reply to reviews, and then it would be 5-star rating is a must. So this is the factors in terms of the importance, and so distance, reviews, star ratings, and then prices. And optimizing for Alexa, and I haven't really paid much attention to that since, for example, after we've seen 23% queries non-answered, then we thought that, the devices like Google and Siri should be prioritized, and Alexa is not really you cannot really understand whether the device will return anything in your category. But anyways, being optimized for Bing search engine, and then work with a Yelp profile, and check local listings in Yext. And this is the link to the full study, but you can just Google the voice search study SEMrush, and then we'll be on the first position there. And
awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you so much. It's so interesting. I took some screenshots because some of the data is surprising.
Thank you.
Okay, so we had a question specifically for Brendan. He mentioned, so this is from Aaron. Brendan mentioned schema markup was important. Does anyone know of any markup generators that will do this type of schema for you? I know, Olga, you said that wasn't always a factor in the study, but is there anything that makes that easier,
I don't have the
Brendan?
name offhand of a schema generator, but if you do FAQ page schema generator, there is one there, because I've used it once or twice to kind of spec up some new schemas specifications. When I say schema is important in that it helps, particularly in a complicated website, it helps you communicate your content directly to the bot. So if there's a piece of code in between your header and your body content, it just allows you to kind of bypass all of those kind of technical issues and present your content. It's not necessarily going to impact your ranking, but if you've got a poorly performing page, it will have a positive impact. An FAQ page, question answer, QA page are all really interesting schema objects to use. I don't think they'd be available really if they didn't help Google identify questions and answers, and as such help them kind of present that content in featured snippets and voice search results. So, and then the other one, which I didn't really mention, is the how-to schema object, which is a really interesting schema object, because if you correctly program your how-to schema, it actually translates into a voice assistant action. So it's a really powerful piece of code.
Awesome. Yeah, that's good to know. Okay, Chris Burns is asking, is position 0 the only way to track the effectiveness of your voice search optimization performance? It's impractical to do voice searches on your phone and report on those results.
Yeah, Google isn't very good at giving us information, statistics back on voice search. So a lot of it's really inferred. So are you successful from a featured snippet perspective? As Olga said, at the PAA, people also ask section, are you how are you doing in that? And tracking all of these. Also using, maybe going into Google Search Console and seeing if your FAQ page schema is working and all your other kind of things. All of these things will help you track, but is there any direct way of getting the information about voice search? I really wish there was.
Okay. Olga, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, there's no direct way to understand how. Well, if you're in position 0, then there's no guarantee that still Google will choose you for the voice search answer, but the likelihood is really stronger. Last year it was 60% of all voice search answers we analyzed it came from featured snippet. So I think right now it's just also you cannot measure how you even monetize being in voice search results. So it's the matter of securing your place and not even letting competitors be the answer Google prefers. And for example, with location specific, then the direct impact on your business could be higher. But I think even being in a position 0, it would benefit you greatly from the non-voice search, but like a regular mobile and desktop search. So it's what every SEO aims for. So this will you will benefit from it, definitely not only in the voice search perspective, but overall from SEO too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So someone's asking, is Google tracking the questions asked via voice or the answers? And is there anywhere to find that info? I would say that Google's probably listening to everything we're asking, but I'd be interested to hear both of your point of view on that.
I would say the answer is 100% yes. Google, if you're giving them information, they're tracking it. So I would say they are. The problem is they're not releasing it, and that's just it does make it very difficult. It makes and I think that's why a lot of people aren't targeting voice search. I think that's why voice search is, it's still such a significant opportunity, because people aren't targeting it specifically. So even without the data, there's still value in targeting it. And I think Olga made a really important point, which is, targeting voice search doesn't mean you're not targeting text search. It actually improves your text search performance. So I think it's something we shouldn't do just because we don't have the data. We need to infer results, and as such, you just track the bottom line. Is revenue increasing? Are my conversions increasing?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We had a podcast series with Gary Ish from Google, and when Laura, the host, asked him about was voice search data, then he was really, well, he didn't really mention much, but from what it felt like they will be, so he just said, okay, well, you write great content and then optimize for search, and but I felt like there was something coming up, or at least they will be somehow working on this. So he was reluctant in answering this question. So which I actually just felt like there was something that he can just not disclose. So I was from that point, I was just thinking that maybe there will be some implementations or some announcements, which I do hope for.
Oh yeah, that's exciting. It'd be so fascinating to see what people are searching.
I think as soon as they work out how to monetize it, and they'll give us some data to help us optimize.
Yes, we shall see. Let's see, what other questions? Gavin wants to know, do either of you have any great examples of who is doing this well? Who's leading in, optimizing for voice search that they could look at for inspiration?
That's a good question. I can probably get back with this when I look at, we haven't singled out anyone in the study just because I feel that it's not really, we still haven't checked all the queries in the world, and it would be not fair just giving someone a shout out, I guess, based on the queries that we had. But that's a really good point. I will probably, I will ask my team to give me maybe 3-5 companies that came up the most. And we'll either do maybe an additional remark, or I'll post it in the comments to my own blog post.
Awesome. Brendan, did you know of anyone off the top of your head?
Well, I've worked with a number of companies, and they've had very successful voice search campaigns. But if you want to see an example of good quality content that has been successful from the voice search perspective, Microsoft have a small, medium-sized business hub where they've used SEMrush, all these various tools to help them kind of ideate. Well, we've helped them ideate content and create content, and there's some good examples there. Obviously, there's some good examples on our own website, particularly in English.
Okay, great. It's hard to just think of some off the top of your head. I know all recipes come to mind for me. I feel like whenever I search for a recipe with my Google device, just to try it out, and the one that has the screen, they always seem to show up. So I don't know if they're a preferred partner of Google's, or they just happen to be optimizing really well for
they just
the recipe
optimize
space.
really, really well, and structured data and everything. They do it really well.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to follow, surprisingly. And there's no life stories that a lot of the smaller recipe sites give before a recipe, so that's good.
And recipe schema and how-to schema are closely related. So that kind of step-by-step dynamic works with Google Assistants really well.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. Let's see. What else? Raman, I hope I'm saying your name right. He wanted to know, how do you optimize a WordPress website for voice search?
Well, I don't mind answering this. WordPress is actually one of my favorite CMSs. I love WordPress. And the beauty about WordPress is there's so many WordPress websites that even when you've got a problem on the website, Google has seen that problem before and can bypass that problem and get to your content. So, WordPress is hugely undervalued, I think, as a CMS, particularly, when you're publishing content, blog content, or that kind of content. It's a really, really powerful CMS. Optimizing WordPress for voice, from a technical perspective, it's quite straightforward. You know, you need to be very careful about what plugins you choose the minimum amount of them, and make sure that, you know, you test them and make sure that they're, you know, they don't slow down your website. But you've got plugins for structured data. You've got plugins for, you know, speed, optimizing your site for speed. So, you know, optimizing a WordPress website is it's not as difficult, we'll say, as optimizing, you know, an Adobe CMS implementation, which, you know, it may not be, well, you can't get your schema, you can't get your schema plugins, you can't get this plug, you know. So it can be a lot easier to optimize a WordPress website. And the great thing about that is it does allow smaller companies, smaller organizations compete with larger organizations, because, you know, even though your CMS is free and they may be paying tens of thousands per year for their CMS, it's still a level playing field as far as Google's concerned.
That makes sense. Lots of good questions today. Keep them coming. We have about a little less than 10 minutes left. You know, Olga, I wanted to ask you, in terms of being signed in or not, does a user's past history, either just, you know, like say my past history in the Chrome browser or my past voice search history, does that affect the results I get with voice search, even like outside of, you know, my local area? If I was searching something more broad than a local result, would what I searched in the past affect voice search, my results?
What we did, we just used one login. We haven't used like any personal data of like anyone else rather than our account. So we cannot really say for sure, but for this specific account that we checked, and then this account was constantly checking best pizzas, best restaurants, or like best laundry nearby. So I think, well, for this had almost no impact, but it could be definitely, well, Google algorithm is very smart. So I think that with having a huge history, this could be different. And then maybe if you clicked only on Italian restaurants, then eventually it would give you the recommendation on Italian restaurants. But in our study and with our account, we couldn't really see any specific difference with login and incognito.
Okay. Yeah, it would make sense that maybe eventually, I don't know if it's to this point, but if you searched Italian restaurants and then you went to one in a list, Google could see where you went based on the GPS in your phone. You would think maybe next time you asked about Italian restaurants, they might eventually start preferring to give you the information about the one you went to, like hours of operation or something. I don't know if it does that now, but I could see that happening.
Still, I think the distance is the most important factor here. And so for both Google and Siri, and and then the same, there are reviews. Google has their own reviews, and then Siri uses Yelp. So I believe that, so what we saw, that distance is absolutely the highest factor, and then then the number of reviews, so the prominence, and then your authority matters. And I would really encourage working with the review sites more, regardless whether you're local business or not. I think this is what a lot more algorithms now pay attention to, and also people pay attention to as well.
Okay, yeah, that's great. Okay, probably just maybe one or two more questions here. Let's see. In either of your opinions, do you think voice search use has changed during COVID-19?
Don't know if voice search, I mean, as a percentage of overall search has changed, but it certainly feels that search has changed. You know, seeing a lot of activity online, seeing, you know, traffic, well, for certain businesses in particular, rising. Certain businesses falling off. I mean, the change in behavior has been significant throughout the whole crisis. So I think it's very much business dependent as to, you know, as to whether search behavior has changed or not. But generally, I think the volume seems to be going up overall. People are stuck at home, or more stuck at home than they would normally be. So we're definitely seeing an uptick there. But obviously, for some businesses, and particularly local businesses, I mean, you know, once you put, you know, your closed hours in, and you know you're kind of offline for a month or two, you know, Google is, I think, taking that into account. Google did give us a whole load of new kind of schema attributes, and also from Google My Business as well, where you can kind of give your COVID-19 announcements about, you know, when you're closed and when you're going to reopen and any events and things like that. So I think search has changed significantly. But, you know, quality content's always going to win. So, you know, as much as it changes, it always stays the same.
Very true. Olga, did you have any insight on that, or?
Yeah, I'll just quickly say that definitely the shopping behavior changed, and then online queries. For example, I think actually Alexa has a really interesting data for that, and specifically for spring. We have identified a lot of change in consumer behavior, and then also how Google was changing SERPs during the COVID-19, and that obviously there were a lot of goods that became popular, and there was so we analyzed, for example, that gardening and hobbies and pets, and then obviously hygiene product. So there were several categories and industries that shown a really huge change in consumer behavior. And then our sensor, the ones that tracking volatility and changes in SERPs, it identified the changes in those industries in terms of it felt like it was algorithmic update. So it felt like that consumer trends really pushed Google also to refine the results, and they were changing a lot of things in specific industries. Specifically, around April, I think we saw the biggest spikes in April, which really was the month when the lockdown for a lot of countries happened.
Yeah, that makes sense. I know for me, I have definitely got into houseplants and bread and all of the stuff people seem to enjoy. So that's really interesting to hear how it's changed. Yeah, so we only have about a minute left. Did either of you have any parting words or anything else you'd like to mention before we go today?
I think I'm all talked out.
Okay, that's okay. All right, well, thank you both. This video replay will be on our YouTube channel. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter at the SEMrush Twitter handle, and we can ask Brendan and Olga any questions you had. So thank you both for presenting, and until next time.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.